you like electronic music? It's all around us today, like the oxygen in the air we breathe, from the top of the pops to the oddest sounds of the underground. But from where and when did it originate? 1980s England? What about 1970s Germany? Could it be 1960s America? 1950s Canada, perhaps? Surely no earlier than 1940s Egypt. And yet, here we are. If you're interested in discovering exactly how deep this rabbit hole goes, tune into SynKult every other Tuesday from 10 to midnight for a vista of electronic sound from the field's pioneers to its current cutting edge, all placed in historical and cultural context by me, your guide, DJ Victor Alls. From musique concrète to minimal wave, space rock to speed garage, acid house to ambient, you'll find it all on SynKult. Good evening, it's me, DJ Victor Alls, and you're tuned into SynKult here on Freeform Portland. The bed music you're hearing right now beneath my voice, and will continue to hear throughout the show, is from Scanner's 2014 live album, Electronic Garden. The reason I chose this album is that hour 2 of the show features a regrettably brief survey of Scanner's extensive discography, followed by an interview with the man behind the Scanner himself, Robin Rimbaud. Hour 1 will be nearly as exciting. It features a dive into the birth of trip-hop that includes some original research and conjecture on the first ever trip-hop track. So, what is trip-hop? The short version is that you know it when you hear it, and I'm sure many of you are already familiar with the sound. The longer version is that trip-hop is a fusional style of electronic music that emerged in early 1990s England, particularly the city of Bristol, which makes heavy use of sampling and turntablism on rare groove, hip-hop, and reggae records to assemble something entirely different. Something that's slower, hazier, and, well, trippier. In June 1994, music journalist Andy Pemberton, writing for Mixmag, coined the term trip-hop, introducing it as, quote, a deft fusion of head-nodding beats, super fat bass, and an obsessive attention to the kind of otherworldly sounds usually found on acid house records. It comes from the suburbs, not the streets, and with no vocals, you don't need to be American to make it sound convincing. All you need are crazy beats and f***ed-up sounds, and you've got the most exciting thing to happen to hip-hop in a long time, end quote. With 30 years of hindsight, I can say Pemberton is partially correct here. Firstly, a lot of trip-hop has vocals. Secondly, his picture focuses so heavily on DJ Shadow that he ends up neglecting another part of the picture. I argue that nearly all trip-hop falls somewhere on a spectrum between what I call sad woman opium den trip-hop on one end, think Portishead is the archetypal example, and the more masculine, breaks-heavy, sympledilic trip-hop that Pemberton describes. He also adds, quote, with the exception of Brit-hop producer Underdog, British hip-hop in particular has usually sounded hollow and flat, content to model itself on its far superior US counterparts. As Tom Dustbrother puts it, hip-hop just isn't very British, is it? It's very difficult to find someone who can rap convincingly in the UK, end quote. Pemberton and I suppose Tom Dustbrother are essentially correct here. Although in retrospect most people distinguish trip-hop from hip-hop as its own stylistic and cultural beast, the first authentic style of British hip-hop was grime, which kicked off around 2002 to document uniquely British streets. What's also interesting about Pemberton's piece is that by drawing a linkage between DJ Shadow, a New Yorker, and UK acts, he's forced to invent a new term for something that until that point was given a decidedly regional moniker, the Bristol Sound. This is because all the foundational trip-hop acts came from the city of Bristol in southwest England. While the term Bristol Sound had been in existence for a while, the clarion call for the UK and global music press that Bristol was onto something came 3 years later in the form of Massive Attack's 1991 debut album, Blue Lines. Blue Lines received instant critical and commercial success, NME for instance calling it, quote, the sleekest, deadliest, most urbane, most confounding LP 1991 has yet seen, end quote, and the album became one of the defining albums of the decade. Here's Five Man Army from Blue Lines.
unannounced a chance ride. People sound loud. Why should I hide? Only had a small taste, so what a waste. I quietly observed there is not much space. Bonament's heavy, you know we're never even. People call me tricky for a particular reason. I've got you say, and I've got to let you know. See, rocking in your area, rock beneath your balcony. My baby just cares for me, well that's funny. Her touch tickles, especially on my tummy.
Now who's got the microphone?
Now who's honey?
Hey turbo and charge me a charge. I did a DG while bunch crew at large. Don't call me an officer, just call me a sarge. Mashing up the country, town and also abroad. Plan to go to America when I get a visa card.
But getting a visa card nowadays isn't hard.
So keep your ears peeled and listen to every card. Tokyo City's one place that we told. Full technique plus 2 mix a bowl.
Yes.
Sharper than a Wilkerson razor sword.
When I was a child I played Studio One. My table then I graduate to Studio One. Cause these man on the boom, you know the three's my pseudonym. And around my neck, you know I wear the Sony Budokan. Indigo blues, you got me in my own shoes. The people dancing in the shade for what they made they can't lose. Yes, waxing lyrical, the time is not satirical. It's kinda spherical, so jam me in a circle. This is the miracle on the depth in the selection.
So whether you're black or white or have cast in your complexion.
Yes, pull out your phone or plug and tuck you in your phony. It started by Marconi, resumed by Sony. A summary of wireless history and only by massive attack and only explosione.
That was Five Man Army by Massive Attack from their 1991 album Blue Lines. I chose that track because the lyrics recount the heyday of the sound system and hip-hop collective known as the Wild Bunch, from which Massive Attack emerged. The Wild Bunch was known for raucous house parties, club nights, warehouse shows, and block parties where they'd play imported American hip-hop records, often slowed down and mingled with live dub effects and reggae toasting, northern soul, and even elements of punk. The Wild Bunch included Grant Daddy G. Marshall, Andrew Mushroom Bowles, later Robert 3D Del Naja, and had close links with Adrian Thaws, better known as Tricky. Daddy G, 3D, Mushroom, and Tricky were all founding members of Massive Attack and the core production team behind Blue Lines. Here's an excerpt from a 1996 BBC4 documentary of 3D and Daddy G reminiscing about their Wild Bunch days.
Dugout Club was a place that brought us together in the first place as people. It was the only place in Bristol which fell between sort of like the Mecca sort of town clubs and the blues clubs, where everyone sort of like, you know, got together somewhere in the middle ground, and that's where a lot of sort of hybrid music started happening, do you know what I mean? Because people were listening to all sorts of stuff, and that's where we started taking, you know, influences from myself, coming from the punk rock thing and into, you know, with the Clash and going through and then getting into the hip hop thing. That was all part of being at a club like the Dugout where those things would happen together, you know?
Yeah, and the fact that it was kind of, you know, quite a multiracial place, you know what I mean? And the fact also, I think, you know, we used to do quite a lot of gigs in St. Paul's as well, and I think it was through the nature of St. Paul's being where it was, right in the middle of the city, and, you know, quite a vibrant place. And, you know, from the fact that we used to be able to do street parties until sort of all day and all night and stuff like that, at the time without the police sort of giving us much hassle.
As I'm sure you can deduce, the Wild Bunch was mostly a live act, which unfortunately creates limitations for shows like SynKult, because live acts are rarely preserved in a way that would be fit for radio. Fortunately, the Wild Bunch released 2 singles, one of which is up next, titled Tearin Down the Avenue from 1987.
All the parts of the enters don't reach. It's the at the mic stand, the main feature. Easy cool breeze, a breezy not stormy, a breath of fresh air, cause none come before me. I won't dilute around to call me concentrator. Projected made effective on the passive radiator. Now that's a flat speaker, and here's my admonition. It's all romanticism, self-touch mechanism. So stay invigorated and I'll set off for sweet. It's the cool breeze, you kicks upon my feet. Oh yeah. The avenue, gravitational pull. The people have to treat it till the party is full. Police give us trouble, police give us fuss. We hold the parties on the front line, they don't get buzzed. They're breaking down the door, the name of the law. At the window goes the dealer, down my trousers goes my jaw. It's easy on the mic, or tearing it to pieces. Beats rocking every force by my thesis. The play it in your homes, the bother with phones. It's tearing down the neighborhoods and no-go zones. Listen up, on France, écoutez. What time will you Sony, or maybe TDK? And whether we decide upon chrome oxide, tapes that will listen to my lyrics subside. Get the gist, it goes like this. Don't need to wear a Uzi, watch you wrap around my wrist. Don't have to bite the hand that holds the microphone. Smoking yours at the party, I smoke mine alone. A lyrical mechanic making money, a commodity. Keep it in a Swiss bank for security. Swiss account number on my mic and I know. Aim to make $1 million, that's a 1 in 6 O's. It's D upon the mic, that's right, I wrote them all. Sounds making people dance around me like a toilet bowl. Posse moves selected and vital. Lyrics that are waste, too short to be recycled. Stand still, you will. Lyrics I have to spill, overloading amplifiers until I pop a fill. And when I win the score, you what they taught me. The English, the language, to be or not to be. Every 2 world wars, it's also history. I took a mathematics in the level GCE. It's what you wanna be, or what you wanna do. Take a 9 to 5 career, join the back of the queue. A sorry mates of me upon the mic is 3D. To envious contenders, it's a say la vie. upon the mic, busting up upon the rhyme. Budweiser ain't the buzz, it ain't Miller time. Attendance and a brew, a split to see me through. You pass the microphone, nice up the venue. We get no trouble from the boys in blue. A wild bunch crew, we're tearing down the avenue. Electric is the atmosphere that we conduct. You hear a cry for murder, my rhyme already struck. Oh my God, it's at the bomb. You listen to my song, kill a brew with the crew. It's coming on strong, it rocks a combination. It's kicking in solo, cause people like me, like a people like Polo. And it's not Corleone, well bunch explosione. Creating and tipping on the system by Sony. It's warming up the temp, we set the thermostat. It's wolf, not sheep, turning killer brew flat. You don't get vexed, 87 comes next. And if I was a dinosaur, my title would be Rex. My fronting big names, jewelry on display. And sporting all the things that you stole the other day. We're coughing up fire, we're kicking up dust. Corroding all the fake, turning gold into rust. It's live and direct, it ain't a vicious rumor. Your posse move, bust a groover like a set humor. It's Wild Bunch crew, it's in your circulation. You're paying for the party or you come by invitation. Rewind it if you like it, you play it once more. To turn around to once to say you heard it all before. Oh, yeah. The Avenue. The Avenue. Oh, yeah. The Avenue. The Avenue. Oh, yeah. Gotta check out the Avenue. The Avenue. Oh, yeah. Gotta check out the Avenue. The Avenue. Oh, yeah. The Avenue. The Avenue. Oh, yeah. The Avenue.
That was Tearin' Down the Avenue from 1987 by The Wild Bunch. While musically excellent, it's not trip-hop. It's really just American-style hip-hop made across the pond in Bristol. The lack of a true domestic hip-hop scene was, in fact, ultimately one of the biggest reasons The Wild Bunch disintegrated. As Milo Johnson, a founding member of The Wild Bunch and one of its two main DJs, put it in that same 1996 documentary,
if you want to make hip-hop music in England, you cannot make a living. That's one of the main reasons I left, like, full stop, because if you really feel you're talented and you have some expression, you need to express yourself, you only have one alternative, and that's do what I do, and that's get out.
Johnson emigrated first to Japan and then soon after to New York City. In a telling move, Johnson released a compilation titled The Wild Bunch, Story of a Sound System in 2002 that consists almost exclusively of American hip-hop, disco, and funk tracks from the New York, New Jersey area. Soon after Johnson's departure, several other Wild Bunch members split to join Soul to Soul, and the Wild Bunch was defunct by 1989. Nevertheless, Daddy G, 3D, Mushroom, and Tricky soldiered on from the wreckage to create Massive Attack. One of their very first projects was production and remix work on Neneh Cherry's 1989 debut album Raw Like Sushi. In part as a gesture of thanks, Cherry footed part of the production bill for Blue Lines, without which extravagant gestures like booking a string quartet for the album's hit single, Unfinished Sympathy, would have been impossible. Raw Like Sushi also contains a few remixes from Massive Attack and others that would later come to be understood as trip-hop. Here's the Massive Attack remix of Manchild from Neneh Cherry's Raw Like Sushi.
Massive attack.
Yeah.
You heard the Massive Attack remix of Manchild from Neneh Cherry's 1989 album Raw Like Sushi. Proper early trip-hop, but it gets more interesting than this because Massive Attack aren't the only ones with remix credits on Raw Like Sushi. And here's the point at which we must switch horses from Massive Attack to Smith & Mighty on the road to uncovering the true origin points of trip-hop. More on Smith & Mighty after we rinse their remix of Manchild.
It's late, your girlfriend is on another date with the hero of your dream. Turn around, ask yourself, so you think you're gonna win this time, man, child? Is it the pain of the drinking or the suddenly sinking feeling? Never seems to work when it's late. Your girlfriend's on a date and the hero with her in your dream. In your sleep, seem like you turn around, ask yourself. Turn around, ask yourself. Man, child, will you ever win? Man, child, look at the state you're in. Could you go undercover and sell your brand new lover? Could you be someone else for a night? Maybe someone else will love you. You'd sell your soul for a tacky song like the ones you hear on the radio. Turn around, ask yourself. Turn around and ask yourself. Man, child, will you ever win? Man, child, look at the state you're in. Man, child, he will make you cry. Man, child,
That was the Smith & Mighty remix of Manchild by Neneh from her 1989 album Raw Like Sushi. Now, Smith & Mighty is a two-man Bristol-based production duo consisting of Rob Smith and Ray Mighty. Smith & Mighty are very important to the trip-hop origin story. They even produced Massive Attack's first non-trip-hop 1988 single. Strangely, and despite receiving frequent name checks in the early 90s press coverage of the Bristol scene, they haven't filtered into many of the official trip-hop retrospectives. Even the Wikipedia entry for trip-hop somehow doesn't mention Smith & Mighty a single time. The reasons for this are numerous. One was a label dispute with FFRR Records, another was the duo simply being allergic to self-promotion. Anyway, Rate Your Music correctly cites Smith & Mighty with the first trip-hop release, although their specific selection is incorrect, as I will get to soon. Here is that incorrect selection first, the Mellow mix of Anyone from Smith & Mighty's 1998 EP, Walk On Traveling.
Anyone who ever loved can look at me and know that I love you. Anyone who ever dreamed can look at me and know I dream of you.
You heard the Mellow mix of Anyone from Smith & Mighty's 1988 EP, Walk On Traveling. Rate Your Music claims that this is the earliest piece of trip-hop. I would beg to differ. In 2012, Bristol Archives Records released the Three Stripes Collection, 1985 to 1990, a compilation of Smith & Mighty's early tunes, including previously unreleased material gathered and lovingly remastered from dusty DATs and white labels in the duo's archive. The earliest track on the Three Stripes collection is Brain Scan, recorded in 1985. Here it is. Okay, there's Smith & Mighty's Brain Scan from 1985. If you say the origin point of trip-hop can't get much earlier than that, you'd be correct. Then again, is Brain Scan trip-hop? Remember, I disqualified the Wild Bunch earlier for being hip-hop. In my opinion, Brain Scan sounds much closer to the dub fusion you'd be getting from second and early third wave dub acts like Aswad, Josh Shaka, Adrian Sherwood, and Mark Stewart. So in my opinion, Brain Scan is out. To divine the first trip-hop single, you have to go forward to sometime in 85 or maybe 86 and a track with no name that you can find on the YouTube channel Bristol Archivist. It cites a since-deleted Facebook post where Ray Mighty wrote that the entitled track is the, quote, first or second track me and Rob ever did about 85, 86. Sorry about the hiss, but it was mastered on a cassette without Dolby and we didn't have a computer. Enjoy. Casio CZ101, Roland SH101, Roland TR707, and Rob on guitar, end quote. Now, of course, it would normally be very poor research ethics to cite a mysterious YouTube video as an authoritative source on anything, even if this one cites Ray Mighty. Fortunately, with a little digging, it turns out that Bristol Archivist is affiliated with the blog of the same name, which is itself run by the Tokyo record store Disc Shop Zero, founded by the late Naoki Lijima, who passed away in 2020. Lijima was a personal friend of Rob Smith and the Bristol scene as a whole. Lijima discovered their music in the mid-80s while working as a music journalist, possibly in connection with the Wild Bunch's 1986 Japan tour. He founded Disc Shop Zero in 1993 and first visited Bristol with his wife in 1994, befriending many important members of the scene. Most of the Bristol artists would stay with Lijima and his family when visiting Tokyo, and artists including Rob Smith would describe Lijima as someone who, quote, knew Bristol better than Bristolians, end quote, because of his vast knowledge of the city's culture. Lijima was also the first one to press Brainscan, the piece you just heard back in 2003. It is for all these reasons why I can confidently say that the YouTube upload is an authoritative source. So here is that untitled Smith & Mighty track from either 85 or 86. That was an untitled Smith & Mighty track recorded in either 85 or 86. I would consider it trip-hop because of how it fuses hip-hop, dub, and electro elements with the famous Doctor Who theme. And there you have it. The first ever trip-hop track is this untitled track from either 1985 or 1986. Case closed. For now. Here's a bonus track from 1989 that Smith & Mighty also produced, Wishing on a Star from the Bristol-based hip-hop group Fresh 4. Wishing on a Star is a cover of the 1977 American R&B track of the same name. The music video for the Fresh 4 cover conspicuously depicts an American-style block party on the streets of Bristol, further evidence for the Milo Johnson statement at the beginning of the show about how the Bristol scene was like a little bubble of New York and England.
I'm wishing on a star, follow where you are. I'm wishing on a dream,
one step further. It's chaos on the waters, dope star means murder. I walk over a bridge, calm was troubled water. Doing what I want to and not what you order. Some decisions are made, like a lamb to a slaughter once made. I think you'll find it hard to order.
You heard Wishing on a Star by Fresh 4 and produced by Smith and Mighty. It dates from 1989. Now for something completely different. Since around 2018-2019, when I was in high school, I've been a fan of the British experimental musician, composer, and multimedia artist Robin Rimbaud, who goes professionally as Scanner. Over the past 30 plus years, Scanner has been an incredibly active artist. His work spans dozens of critically acclaimed experimental electronic albums, installation pieces including for the Centre Pompidou in Paris, and the first sound art commissioned by the Tate Modern London, scores for film and modern dance, including a collaboration with the legendary American choreographer Merce Cunningham, and musical collaborations with artists as diverse as Karsten Nicolai, Michael Nyman, Laurie Anderson, Annie Hogan, and DJ Spooky. And guess what? Tonight I've got Scanner on the show. This is a pretty big deal for me. Bucket list material, one might say. The origins of Robin Rimbaud's Scanner alias goes back to the late 80s when he bought a second-hand police scanner from an old university friend. His friend had been using it to disrupt illegal fox hunts, reporting these wealthy poachers to the police. Scanner, who had been field recording and manipulating found sounds on cassette since childhood, used it to record private phone calls that he wove into unsettling soundscapes. I should note that in the early days of mobile phones, there was no encryption. No fancy tapping was required to listen in. You could hear cell chatter in the 700 to 900 megahertz range with almost any decent radio scanner or CB radio. Most of Scanner's early published work employs this technique in some way or another, exploring themes such as surveillance, voyeurism, the erosion of boundaries between the private and public spheres, the materiality of information, and so on. One of these albums is Spore, released in 1995 on Tim Millington's new electronica label. Here's the track Strom from Spore.
Thank you very much. Okay? I want useful people around me. If they're not used to me, I just drop them.
Yeah, like me.
So you're different.
Well, I've been dropped a long time ago.
So why hang on?
Eh?
So why hang on?
Well, I think I've got your son, haven't I? But I'm willing now to drop you with or without your son.
Yeah. Well, the choice is yours, you know.
Well, you won't care if I made a choice anyway.
So why are you asking?
Because I just realised that I can do it on my own.
Well, if you can, all the better.
Right?
I really want to spend some time and make my children grow up right.
Well, how can they grow up right when every time I try to buy property, you just don't...
It has nothing to do with property.
Yes, it is. It's in the surroundings.
It hasn't. It has got nothing to do...
Well, we're sitting here in the house with no telly, no light.
It's not the way that the place... I know my reputation has been destroyed because of I get the impression that it's me that made the house and a disheveled man.
Well, Mark, I'm telling you now, right? We have no lights. Not even the clock's working. I've got a candle right here at the end of the bedside, right? Right? We're sitting here with no light, no telly. I've told you about it. Well, that's tomorrow. What about today? What about tonight? Yeah, because you're only around the corner, you know.
You heard Strom by Scanner from his 1995 album Spore. It's certainly uneasy listening. Scanner drops out the conversation between a woman and her domineering partner as soon as it gets interesting. It's defamiliarizing, or perhaps refamiliarizing technically, a form of admonishment for treating the conversation as a radio drama instead of a real intimate conversation that contained genuine pain and genuine stakes. Fast forward to the year 2000, and a collaboration between Scanner and Paul Miller, aka DJ Spooky, in classic dubwise parlance penned as Scanner vs. DJ Spooky, The Quick and the Dead. Here's Journey, the first track from The Quick and the Dead. This one goes out to a friend and colleague, DJ Gazebo, who's big into Ilbient. On alternating Wednesdays from 2 to 4 a.m. PST, DJ Gazebo hosts Subcultural Wallpaper, a show covering electronic music's early avant-garde and whatever odd cuts he decides to sequence from his second hour, often including some Ilbient. I'm DJ Victor Alls, and this is SynKult, coming to you from Freeform Portland, KFFP LP Portland, KFFD LP Beaverton, and on the web at freeformportland.org. Now, back to the program. That was Journey, a collaboration between Scanner and DJ Spooky from the year 2000. Collaborations of this sort can be jarring, but I find the artists' compositional sensibilities complement each other rather well. Next is Opening Frame, a piece from one of Scanner's installations which received the album treatment in 2002. The British School at Rome commissioned 52 spaces as part of a retrospective on the filmmaker Michelangelo Antonioni. The piece uses audio from Antonioni's 1962 film L'Eclisse and was synchronized to slow down footage from the film's famous final montage, which cuts from the preceding narrative drama to a modernist cityscape. L'Eclisse and the trilogy it's a part of is about decadence, ennui, and alienation. The failure of the wealthy and beautiful people it follows, who seem to have it all, to connect meaningfully with each other or take ownership over their lives, and the austere yet beautiful modernist landscapes they build for themselves. Opening Frame, with its shuddering tensions and warped vocal textures, exudes a similar idea.
Volevo dire che Ghezzi si era portato la traduzione di quell'articolo tedesco. Mi dispiace di dover fare questo lavoro per te. Però conosco qualcuno che possa sostituirmi. Ci penso io se vuoi. D'altra parte, non era il caso di continuare. Oppure, se vuoi posso continuare.
E questo che volevi dirmi?
Io vado.
Aspetta.
Ma cosa devo aspettare?
Aspetta un momento.
Sei sicuro che abbiamo evitato di dirci certe cose? Perché adesso me le vuoi tirare fuori?
No. Tu certe cose non me le resisti. Tu non sei cattiva.
Sono cattiva con te.
Può darsi, Vittorio, ma non importa. Sii buona, se dimmi un'ultima cosa. Non mi ami più o non vuoi più sposarmi?
You heard Opening Frame by Scanner from his 2002 installation cum album 52 Spaces. Scanner has also composed over 75 scores for modern dance productions, including Faultline, a 2007 collaboration with choreographer Shobana Jayasinghe, which explores British Asian youth culture in the wake of the 2005 tube bombings, touching upon themes such as race and racism, national belonging, and masculinity and diaspora. Here's some of what Scanner had to say about his score in a 2019 retrospective.
I'm here with Robin Rimbaud, who composed the score for Shobana Jayasinghe's Faultline. I understand that Shobana initially heard a piece that you'd done before she started work on the piece, and it was an electronically distorted soprano voice. Is that right?
I'd been working with Wayne McGregor on a piece, and they were friends with each other, and our paths just frequently crossed. And she just said, "Can I hear some of your music?" And so I gave her unheard pieces, just sketches I made in the studio. So in some ways, these were just demos, and they were using the voice and looping it and slowing it down and speeding it up and creating these kind of otherworldly, abstract kind of soundscapes. I like to use sounds often and process them and treat them in a way. So it sounds like you're hearing somebody having a conversation through a wall, but you can't quite hear it. Or it's the sound of the traffic rumble. So inside Faultline are all these kinds of gritty, urban, disposable sounds. They're kind of ugly to many ears, and there's something I find quite beautiful. They are a picture of that city at a certain time. To me, it felt very much like London at that time, the music.
The way you describe it there sounds to me like what we just don't notice around us has somehow been incorporated in the background of your
Something I love,
text,
absolutely. I mean, I've always been drawn to an idea that we are immersed in radio signals. So if you have the correct machine to pick these up, you'd be able to pick up all these kind of signals passing through us at all times. We don't hear them. But I like, in some sense, of being the receiver, so to speak, picking these things up and using them through the work. What Faultline has in its essence is a picture, in sound certainly, of a certain time, and that's buried inside this kind of quite ethereal voice at times, this kind of very real element, the human voice. some electronics, but something that to me never feels electronic. That was always the important thing. I always wanted something that people feel. You know, I want them to have an emotional response to it, and I think that worked.
Yes, I definitely do as well. It was very unsettling. There's nothing quite to get hold of in terms of the root or the beat, but you know that there's quite a lot there, but nothing quite graspable.
It's easy to dismiss electronic music as something inhuman, as something robotic, as something completely artificial. And what I've always tried to do is have it possess a humanity.
In 2009, Scanner released the album Rockets Unto the Edges of Edges, a wide-ranging and thoroughly gorgeous album that occasionally revisits some of the material from Faultline. Broken Faultline is one such track, featuring the vocals of acclaimed soprano Patricia Rosario, who also worked on Faultline. It certainly does sound human. You heard Broken Fault Line by Scanner from his 2009 album Rockets Unto the Edges of Edges. One final piece before the interview, Thunder and Cathode from Scanner's 2017 album Feebole. It was something of a transitional album for Scanner. According to the Bandcamp liner notes, this was Scanner's first studio album since Rockets Unto the Edges of Edges. In this time, much had changed. He lost his entire family and left the comfort of a familiar city, London, to live in a former textile factory in the UK to reinvent his life. He wrote the piece Thunder and Cathode whilst on a train in the Netherlands, watching the landscape pass by, inspired by the work of the American minimalist composers. Thunder and Cathode is next. You heard Thunder and Cathode by Scanner from his 2017 album Feebole. Now for an interview with the man himself.
Good to meet you, Robin.
Absolutely.
If I have first question for you would be, what is your earliest musical memory?
Do I have one? I presume if if memory works correctly, it's going to be something related to Sparky's Magic Piano or something like this. Do you know Sparky's Magic Piano?
Unfamiliar.
So it's going to be, I've got a batch of records that I had as a child. I don't know how I acquired these. Presumably my mum bought them for me. One of them is Rupert the Bear. Another one is Sparky's Magic Piano and the Talking Piano, which used to really freak me out, which is just the vocoder. As you know, it's a very creepy thing.
Sparky, oh Sparky.
Who's that? Who's calling me?
It is I, your piano.
But, I'm somebody who music was always in my house. So it was Beatles records, David Bowie records. But I have a copy of my record from the age of about 8 or 9 where I was listening to Host the Planets. I can't explain why I had a copy of Host the Planets in my collection, because my family didn't listen to classical music, but presumably at school or something, they encouraged us to open our childlike minds to experience it.
It's a lovely story.
Yeah, thank you.
I understand this was years later as a teenager, but would you mind giving the short version of your on land story for the benefit of the listeners? Frankly, it's one of the most poignant artistic origin stories I've ever heard.
Ah, that's funny. So my mum bought me Brian Eno's On Land record as a teenager. And in those days, there was no streaming culture. The only way to listen to music was to sit in your bedroom, usually, put your record on the record deck and sit and immerse yourself in this wonderful music. And what I really loved about the record were these voices that were hidden just beneath the surface, all these kind of conversations. And I thought, wow, this is so fantastic. And the next day I returned to the record, only to find there were no conversations on it. This was not a psychological issue I was suffering from. I wasn't hearing voices or anything of the such, but discovered that my neighbour on the corner of the road opposite was using a CB radio, once known as a citizens band radio, and she was talking to her boyfriend, a trucker, on this system. So what my hi-fi system was doing was acting as a very unsophisticated radio in a way. So it was picking up those signals which went then through my hi-fi. And of course, those voices appeared every now and then at times when you least wanted them, when you wanted to enjoy a piece of music. But I realized, looking back over the years, that's where another interest came in combining voice and sound. And in fact, I told Brian this story some years ago, which he found very, very amusing.
That's lovely, being able to tell somebody you listen to at that age. And I mean, I guess you're one of the greats now, but like meeting one of the greats, one of the other greats, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny when you make work, and over the years, when you do things sometimes long enough, and your path begins to cross with those you've grown up with. To me, I find it remarkable sometimes when I look through my record collection, I think, oh, I know these people, and we email each other, and we sometimes meet up, and it's quite a strange experience, So, I mean, in fact, at this very moment, I'm working with Brian's assistant on a project, Peter Chilvers, and he's coming over tomorrow to continue working on it with me. So it's a world that keeps circulating around and around, sort of in these weird circles that combine and connect different people.
Well, I'll be eyeing your Bandcamp at releases anytime soon. In a related sense to your on-land story, I'm interested in the use of chance and structure in a lot of experimental music and the way the two fold back on each other in interesting, unusual ways. Do you resonate with this chance and structure couplet? And if so, do you see it reflected in your work?
Absolutely. I mean, when I perform live, especially, what I have zero interest in is replicating something I've made in a studio environment. By that, I mean, the only way of my performing it is to take out the tools I have around me, which are simply not practical for many, many reasons. Mostly being weight of not my weight, but the weight of the equipment and the bulk of trying to carry these things. So when I perform live, I rely a lot on chance and the moment in itself. I've always enjoyed the aspect of standing in front of an audience in the same situation as they're in. They don't know what to expect, and I don't know what to expect. And so you're led into this weird moment when almost anything could happen. And so a lot of music, in fact, before we were talking, I'm working on something here, which is a project which you can't quite see. If you can see through the camera, you can kind of see the camera wants to keep following me around. So if I stand up, you can't quite see it. There's a staircase in the background, and the staircase is a feature of a new album I'm making. So it's a stainless steel staircase that floats in the middle of the building. And it's not as scary as I describe it, but I'm making a recording, and a lot of that is I'm using these recordings I made and then using lots of kind of chance software to kind of reshape them and see what happens and how they talk to each other. So I'm literally exploring that today. So chance both creatively and in my own life has played a huge role, of kind of bringing joy to my life.
I also look forward to seeing when Music for Staircases drops.
Or whatever it's going to be called. I haven't decided yet.
One of my favorite compositions of yours is the installation piece turned album 52 Spaces. It helps I'm a big fan of Michelangelo Antonioni too. Could you tell me more about the thought process behind that project and its reception at the museum? And I suppose if you're inclined, how you interpret the closing montage in L'Eclisse.
It was an interesting project to work on. I was invited by the British School at Rome, who every year would invite usually a visual artist to come and be a resident and make a work that resonates with Rome. And I went there and I had no idea whatsoever what to do, which is usually the story of my life. And what happened was I happened to see L'Eclisse, the eclipse, shortly after being in Rome, and suddenly thought, hey, this is the city 40 years before I was here. This is how Rome used to look. It was empty. It was spacious. It wasn't filled with cars and tourists and coaches and things like this. And it was also it's also a film about connections and disconnections. Anybody who knows Antonioni films know that in essence they're often about people trying to connect, but the city is part of that, and these people can never quite connect with each other. So in watching the film, what I was particularly drawn to was the closing sequence, where you have this montage of sequences where essentially the characters arrange to meet, but they don't appear. So what the camera does is look for them, in a sense, at all the locations. And I thought what was really magical about it is you have this kind of 2 minutes of film, and it moves fairly rapidly. I'm a great fan of slow cinema. So what I did was took that 2 minutes and stretched it out so it lasted about 40 minutes. And I made it into an installation in a museum context. I took all the sound detail from the film, both voices, piano, bicycle wheels, bells, all kinds of things, and made this montage again, which kind of reflected the montage idea of the film. So 2 minutes of film stretched out to 45 minutes. I made an album, which is a kind of an expansion upon the installation in a way. It takes the same themes and presents them in a slightly different way for a kind of home listening. And released it as a CD, and I made it into a performance as well. So every now and again, over the last 20 or so years, I've actually been to locations, stood there on a stage with a projection of the film in slow motion, the closing sequence, and then performed a live soundtrack to it. And it's been great, actually. It's one of those works that's sustained, and the ideas still really appeal to me. The idea of the figure in the city, immersed in a place, sometimes unable to make those kind of connections, sometimes able to make those connections. It's a strongly resonant idea. Whether that works for audiences or not is to be tested, because sometimes I perform the work and it's very slow. And there are certainly times when people have fallen asleep in the audience, and it doesn't bother me at all. I like the idea of, that maybe they're enjoying it so much they kind of just fell inside that moment. So it's a strongly resonant work, I feel.
I would agree. Anyway, moving on, I guess the 1990s work from which you take your professional name, mixing long, minimally treated cell phone conversation over experimental electronica or dark ambient, captures a certain late 20th century zeitgeist with its anxiety about new telecommunications technology, surveillance, voyeurism, and the like, perhaps as a more down-to-earth compliment to the 20 minutes into the future writers like John DeLillo and filmmakers like David Cronenberg. For instance, in albums like Mass Communication and Spore, there seems to be a statement that we don't need the mind control snuff TV channel found in Cronenberg's Videodrome, that the pain humans already casually inflict on each other through the airwaves is enough. In what ways do you find this zeitgeist you explored in the 90s still relevant? Could you see yourself revisiting these themes now that we're well into the 21st century? And do you know of any other artists, musical or otherwise, who do so particularly well?
I feel that the themes and the ideas are still as strong today as they were back in the 90s when I began that body of work. I tend to call it a suite of works because I made that series of works for a certain period and realized I didn't want to be recognized as the fellow that only made one style of work, to show I was a little bit more open to possibilities, one might say. So, the themes behind a lot of that work, which is also about public-private space, which is about how we look at the roles we play in society. It reflects back on 52 Spaces, the positions we occupy within the world, how we communicate with others, how we use technology to communicate with others, how those in power can use those technologies to kind of spy on us. I mean, certainly in the UK, there's been many stories recently about Apple wanting to stop the UK government because the UK government has asked to have access to people's iPhones in case we're hiding something, and Apple is saying, no, our whole position is this is private information. You can't just ask for an open door into somebody's private, communications. So this work, which was both voyeuristic and playful and naughty and cheeky in a British kind of way, where I was using people's mobile phone calls, both recorded and also broadcast live. So when I performed, if I came to Seattle or Portland, wherever it may be, I would stand on a stage, which in fact I did at the time in Seattle, stood on a stage and I would stand there and scan the airwaves and bring in these live voices from the environment. So what you were hearing was a picture of real time. It was a picture of a city, a place in a real time. So very much the work was kind of like a psychogeography in a sense. It was a kind of digging beneath the surface, also seeing what's on the surface and seeing what level of surface noise was thrown back at me. Here we are in 2025. Many of the things I was concerned about and worried about, which was a kind of big brother scenario in a bigger picture, but also a public-private space between individuals, has radically changed. And I'm concerned that people have forgotten sometimes about how to keep things private, how to maintain that privacy. The fact that so many people seem to have their accounts hacked, be it social media or their phones or whatever, demonstrates how susceptible people are to individuals basically crushing into their lives, crashing in and accessing this world of theirs and then sharing it somewhere else. But in a much more scary way, taking information and then sharing it, taking credit card details, etc., spreading stories, spreading lies. I mean, there's a film that just came out made by the director of Succession, the TV series called, is it Mountainhead? It's just come out. I haven't seen it yet, but it's part of the story. It's a playful story, but one of the characters, it's four kind of billionaires boasting to each other on a mountaintop. One of them has devised AI software that is so realistic, people think the world is actually ending, but it's all fake. I'm not spoiling a film because I haven't seen it. I'm telling you what I've read. So there are filmmakers working with these ideas as well, which I find really interesting, playing with our, inverted commas, reality and showing us what's possible, what's not possible, and kind of manipulating it. So I think, people working in that region are often filmmakers, or they're not theorists, but they're people working with digital technologies who are looking at ways and exploring themes of kind of possibilities within technology.
Absolutely.
To speak sonically, I'm not sure who I'd point to, really.
And there's a way in which good film is just popular theory for the people, really.
Yeah, true.
Also think of films like Searching in 2018, and I believe the same directors made a follow-up and recently about a mother and daughter who go to Mexico, and the mother is abducted, and the daughter has to figure out what happened to her mother and so on. It sort of has like a hyper-real component, right? You have all these other sensory experiences you can access through different web apps and platforms and so on. Also thinking of the uniquely British character of some of this, I mean, Britain is the world's most advanced surveillance state in some ways.
What's interesting there is that you can also, because of the law here, you can access that information. You have the right to access it. So there's a great story about somebody who made a pop video using the London Underground metro system. Because if you say I travelled from this stop to this stop at these hours, you have the right to access that footage and they can send it to you. So somebody made a pop video by going to all these different locations and telling the transport company, this is where we were at this time, and then got all the footage and then made a pop video out of it, which I thought was fantastic because you see them on the platform, you see them on the train, on the escalator. It's a great way of utilizing that kind of technology in a creative way.
That is really cool. What is distinctive to you about London's oral psychogeography, and in what ways does London's music scene reflect that geography and psychogeography?
Yeah. I mean, there's been certainly in a city like Manchester as well, and Bristol, each of these cities, and I can only speak about the UK with personal experience, have been able to kind of give birth to particular scenes in a way. It's quite interesting. I lived in East London for many years. There was a very particular, scene that when that kind of whole grime scene kicked off, there was a record store very close to me on Roman Road where kids would just hang out and buy white labels and just literally stand there all day just listening to records. It was fantastic, and they'd buy these records that had kind of almost bypassed the music industry. They weren't even going to get as far as being officially released, in a sense, with a picture on the sleeve. They were just records in white plain sleeves. And you can look at the different cities, how these things come through. I mean, there's been a large, especially in the past in the UK, a kind of art college upbringing. So out of that came Eno and Roxy Music and so many bands that were emerged from that world. That's kind of changed now, and that scene turned into the visual art scene. Excuse me. It turned into a visual art scene with people like Damien Hirst and Tracy Emin and all these kind of characters in the visual arts But, you know, you can easily, the cliche is you go to Bristol, and at the time it was all things like trip hop, certainly in the 90s. And then in more recent years, there's been a really kind of interesting kind of dub flavored scene has come through. There seem to be these pockets throughout the UK of music that kind of breaks through in a really exciting way, all the way up from kind of Glasgow and Edinburgh, all the way down to the south. And it's very, very exciting, you know, and when you've been part of it and you're old enough to have experienced some of these things from the start and see how they've grown and sometimes how they've just evaporated, it's very stimulating, actually.
I was listening to Sulphur yesterday, and there are some very dubby tracks on that one. I was wondering when you first discovered dub and at what point, if at all, you kind of connected the work you were doing to the dub ethos.
I mean, for me, you know, the interesting side for that approach to music was using the studio as a tool a lot of the time, was people taking, in inverted commas, pop music or songs and seeing how you could invert them and see what the essence of that music was. It was almost like a type of minimalism, you know, when I first heard it. It's about stripping away the architecture and seeing what remains, and where you can take that within space. And by that, I don't mean space, the final frontier. I mean space as in using reverbs and echoes. And so that led to a development particularly interesting for me with labels like Basic Channel and Rhythm and Sound in Berlin. And that whole sound and those kind of characters like Moritz von Oswald and Mark Anestis and these kind of producers making this beautifully warm, organic dance music that are taking those themes from Jamaica and these kind of musics that are just absorbing influences and producing something else. So for myself, I don't have the skill set to make music as strong as that, you know, but sometimes it sits under the surface for things I'm doing, you know, and has that propulsion. I had a project called Trawl, and within Trawl, what I was doing was exploring dub. So I used the name Trawl. I made one EP and one album, which came out on CD about, I don't know, 5 years ago or something, but the EP is from 20 years ago with remixes from Mick Harris of Scorn and Bill Laswell. And these were ways of like basically looking at how the bass works within that style of music. But, you know, I've put my foot within the field of kind of dance music. It's never very successful, but, you know, it's something I've grown up with and really enjoyed, and it's fun making it, to be quite honest.
I don't know, I like Scanner Funk. I don't think it would ever main stage at a EDM festival, but that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Neither would Basic Channel for that matter.
No, true.
Do you think you'd ever like to do a collab with Mark Ernestus?
Fantastic. I'm a huge fan. In fact, I was listening to him today, some of his remixes this morning. I'm a big admirer of his kind of sound. I find it very sensual, very propulsive. You know, it's not impossible to consider that, actually, to be honest. You know, and speaking of Scanner Funk, actually, I have on my hard drive in front of me here, as we're talking, at least one or two new Scanner Funk albums that are kind of almost ready to go. I thought maybe it's time I, you know, release them, and they're kind of almost ready to go. So they're for the hip more than the head, but I'm quite pleased with them. We shall see what people think.
Speaking of the connection between the hip and the head, you once quipped that some people kept asking you if you were Burial after you completed Night Jam in 06. I may as well ask any thoughts on Burial and his legacy.
Yeah, it's funny because a good friend of mine, she used to share a flat with him. And I remember very early on, she said, I have to play you some of this music by him. And I said, I already know it because people think I'm him, which I thought was quite funny. And though our paths have never crossed, you know, it's quite funny. He was sharing a flat with her. And particularly those first records were phenomenal, to be honest. I thought they were incredibly inspiring. I've listened to, I think, almost everything he's done and still a great fan, even when he moves into what one might call slightly cheesy kind of Euro techno at times. It's a very strange world, but somehow he's able to do it with some integrity. You know, I think they're fantastic records. I really do. And, you know, Steve, who, you know, Code 9, who runs the Hyperdub label, I have huge respect for. And these are some of these people like Steve I know from before he made music. Mm-hmm. He used to teach in a university, and I remember giving a talk at that university many years ago. So when you're old enough, to track your paths of how you know some people goes way, way back to the, you know, long before they were doing other things.
Are you saying you gave a talk at Warwick during the old
Yes.
CCRU days?
Yeah, exactly. I was quite
Ah,
connected to them, yeah, back in those days. So that was kind of 93, 94, 95, those kind of times with Sadie
Sadie
Plant.
Plant.
Yeah, and all these characters. It was fantastic.
Actually, I'm not at all surprised in retrospect, but I never really made that mental connection.
Yeah, so my world was kind of circulating around that point. This was basically before what we call the internet now.
Hmm.
So, I was there several times at different conferences talking about in talks about public and private space, about new media, about new technologies, these kind of things. So there was another guy called Nick Land who was working there. Some really
Yes.
really inspiring people actually. And
Early Mark Fisher too, right? He was a
yeah,
graduate student.
exactly. Yeah, so it's really funny when you look at the picture over the years and how these, if we were to draw it on a huge graph, it's quite phenomenal when you see how people have connected over their kind of different zones over the years.
Mm. Imagining one of those like memes where you have the conspiracy theorist with all the red yarn and the pictures and the thumbtacks.
Exactly.
It's true sometimes though. These art
It
scenes
is.
are.
Somebody once described to me, he said, "Oh, I have an image of you in your studio." He said that you have a big table with a map of the world and you have a team of people with those long sticks and they're moving figures of you around the table as you approach
war room.
world domination. Exactly, the scanner
yes.
war room. I'm still dreaming of that, but that may be another day.
Well, it'd be based in the textile factory. I don't know.
True.
I digress, though. Running back to the point about scanner funk and hips and heads and things of that nature, what is it like for an artist in such a niche scene to be booked for gigs that just aren't right for them, or a turnout or a crowd is not receptive or positive towards your act?
I've had that. I performed early on in Switzerland and I turned up expecting it to be a kind of dance festival. And I had this quite funky set and I walked into the venue as basically like an old people's home and they were all seated. And I thought, what do I do? I'm still going to have to play this show. So I literally removed all the rhythms and played this quite beautiful, actually kind of propulsive set of kind of melodies and bass lines and things, but never ever had any percussion or anything. So I've had that. I mean, then again, I'm the same person who did a few shows with The Prodigy a few years ago in Norway. And
I read that article. I loved it.
To play those kind of shows is very, very entertaining. I remember standing there thinking, there are goodness knows how many people, 20,000 people standing there. The man right in front of me over the barrier had a suit on covered in light bulbs that were all lit up. I still wonder how he powered this. I don't know. But you just carry on. And generally, people are quite open to it. And if they're not, hopefully they leave. I've never had anything thrown at me. I've had people say they didn't particularly like it, which is perfectly fine because I don't like lots of other things. So,
But hey, you shut up and they're listening, and that's the important part. Expanding their horizons.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've always argued it's important to see things, and if you don't like them, be it a film or a concert or something, it's good. It's valuable to understand why this isn't resonating with you. What is it about it that doesn't appeal? And that's also a very important thing to learn.
It's personal growth. It's rough. It's real. It's organic. It's one of the things with people. I don't know, people my age. Well, it's people my age, millennials too, who were able to fine tune their cultural preferences through a touch of a button. It's very easy to turn something off, click the escape key when you don't like something. If you're part of a physical scene, if you go to a show, you can't just. I mean, you can leave that easily, but then you're down $15 because you pay that much to get in, or people crowding. You need to run through the crowd to get through the door.
Yeah.
There's more friction, and that can be a good thing as long as it's of course safe and not too uncomfortable. What is your favorite piece of equipment that no longer works? Since I know you are a gearhead.
Yeah, I think it all works. I'm looking around seeing, does it all still work? I suppose my old laptops kind of don't work anymore, but they're all in the basement. They're all held together. I'm just looking around now, seeing if any of these things in here, there's lots of things. I think they all still work. I mean, I'm still struck that I even have things like my first ever hard drive, which is the size of a large kind of art catalog, which had 1 gigabyte of memory in it. It's phenomenal. This thing is enormous and cost me so much money. I think that's the interesting thing is looking back at technology as you bought it over the years. And I tend to keep old things because they're very, very looking around if I can show you something, but I have things I've had for years and years and years, and they still work brilliantly, be they guitar pedals or whatever it may be. I take care of the things. But, finding and coming across some of these things, I mean, if I were to say one thing, it might be the first iPod. I used to use the first iPod a lot. I loved it. A big, fat, white cube, no screen or anything, and I absolutely loved it. Or maybe it did have a screen, I can't remember, but it stopped working. And to this day, I think I'd so love just to see this thing come back to life. I used to love those devices. I'd use them for gigs. I used to use a series of them and press random play on them with different sounds, produce all these different textures so I could make pieces almost automatically, because I could run 5 of them in a row and they would just randomly kind of connect and disconnect with each other.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've seen those old iPod CDJs at thrift stores and online and whatnot.
Wow.
Seems like an interesting experience.
Yeah. In fact, I remember when I played a show in Poland and I was in Warsaw and I had it and all the technicians were around me saying, "What's that?" Because it's just this white, pure cube. Nobody's seen anything like it. It was incredible. And at the same time, I was using a keyboard called a Roland PMA5, which comes in a folder which looks like a Filofax, has a leather cover, and you take it off and you play it with a pen. So this was before iPads were around or anything. So people were very confused. They thought I was, making notes on stage, and I'd put the stylus in my mouth, so it looked like I had some weird little, European cigar in my mouth as I was performing. So if you look at old photos, sometimes you can see the little thing. As a non-smoker, it's a very strange thing to see hanging out of my mouth.
Right. That makes sense. They should have been less surprised about that. And people have been using xylophones in music since the 70s.
Exactly.
But I can imagine the iPod, right? I mean, credit to Apple's industrial design team, I guess.
Completely, yeah.
Who are 2 underappreciated musical artists working today that you think SynKult listeners and me as the SynKult host should know about?
So as you know, I have a radio show, so I'm always playing music that I feel people should be listening to. And I probably cannot answer that question off the top of my head. I'm thinking, Earspace is an important place to visit if people want to hear new music. But I thrive on listening to new things. I'm buying, acquiring, having music sent to me, as you probably thrive in that kind of pleasure of just being able to hear things and share it with others. It's great, actually. And particularly in recent years, there's been so many women making electronic music, which is really reassuring. For a long time, it was very much a boys' club. And I've tried to often have at least 50% women in the show, sharing their work. So I can't answer your question, but I feel like a failure there. But believe me, there's so many things.
That's all right. Maybe it's a bit embarrassing to say, but I've used some of the pieces you've played on Earspace on my shows before.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
What was that? That Janka and Sir, the 2 people you couldn't pronounce and I couldn't pronounce either. That
yes.
IDM dub piece. Brilliant.
Yeah, it seems to be certainly a vogue with titles of artists and tracks and albums that's almost impossible. So I've been enjoying trying to pronounce them, but you can only try your best.
Well, I think part of it's just being Eastern European, unfortunately, and our Anglophone brains can't comprehend always.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway, I just wanted to thank you for your time and ask if there's anything else you would like to add or say.
Peace on earth, goodwill to all men. No, what I want to say is thank you for your support. It doesn't matter how many listeners or followers anybody ever has. It's really important about supporting each other. So I never make a judgment upon anyone like that. I'm more cautious about people who seem to have millions of followers, and I think, really? They can't connect with anybody. So thank you for your support and anybody who buys or communicates with me. It's really important, and I do value it.
Thank you. It's my privilege.
Oh, thank you.
Anyway, that's been Robin Rimbaud, a.k.a. Scanner, and I am DJ Victorals with SynKult.
And there you have it. Let's fade out the show tonight with a cut from Contrary Motion, the recent collaboration between Scanner and Steve Stapleton, aka Nurse with Wound, from this March. Contrary Motion sees Scanner heavily reworking audio from a 2014 Nurse with Wounds show in Adelaide, Australia, using a variety of esoteric modular gear. The two communicated over snail mail and CDR, choosing to theme the song titles around homeopathic medicine, as both of their partners are keenly interested in alternative medicine, and it lends the work a poetic and suggestive aura. As Scanner recounts in his blog, quote, "The album is most definitely a study in contrast, structured yet fluid, harmonic yet dissonant, familiar yet alien. It unfolds in waves, inviting listeners to navigate a labyrinth of sonic abstraction, where ghostly echoes, mechanical pulses, and spectral drones weave together in hypnotic formations." End quote. Now, on to Causticum by Scanner and Nurse with a Wound from their 2025 Contrary Motion LP. As always, I have been your host, DJ Victor Alls with SynKult. Please enjoy and good night.
Why want to